Now, the First Coast's most accurate forecast from the First Coast News Weather Team, certified by Weather Rate, sponsored by AC Designs.
Good afternoon, folks. Happy 4th of July. Welcome in. I hope you are enjoying your Friday afternoon, celebrating here on this very festive, patriotic holiday. Most of us have seen some pretty nice weather. Now, there are a few isolated thunderstorms out there, primarily across some of our more inland locations. So, inland southeast Georgia, areas west of Highway 301 across northeast Florida. So, Baker, Columbia counties down into Union and Bradford. Some of those storms are going to be headed towards the Gainesville area here very, very soon. We'll take a look at those along with, you can see the swirl there just off of our east coast, actually about 150 miles due east of Jacksonville out there in the Atlantic Ocean. Invest 92L now has a high chance of tropical formation within the next 48 hours. So we could be seeing a tropical depression either by later this evening, perhaps as you're sitting out watching some of those fireworks, or by early tomorrow morning. So much more defined kind of swirl there, just area of moisture along that low pressure system that is gradually beginning to build and increase in intensity a little bit. We'll break that down here for you as well. But first, let's look at some of the thunderstorms that we do have out across the First Coast on this 4th of July holiday for you. So we were primarily watching just kind of some streams of moisture come in pretty much from Brunswick to Folkston, and then there have been a few more that have built further off to the north, moving through places like Blackshear and Pierce County, kind of the eastern or southeastern sides of Waycross and Ware County as well. But a lot of that is quickly marching off to the southwest. So you look a little bit closer there, you can see some of those, just isolated showers, a few rumbles of thunder up there across the Okefenokee Swamp. But really, the stronger storms are now down towards the I-10 corridor, most of which have already crossed over the interstate. So western sides of Duval County has seen a little bit of some thunderstorm activity. That's going to start to move into the west sides of Clay County here very shortly. And then clearly, pretty much right along Highway 301, traveling down towards Stark, and eventually Gainesville, going to be seeing some of those thunderstorms. These are moving rather quickly, about 15, perhaps even 20 miles per hour as they become a little bit more outflow dominant. So kind of just a quick shot of rain here for your holiday evening, and everything should be clearing out of there by 6 o'clock tonight. Pretty much all the thunderstorm activity is going to be well out towards I-75 and perhaps even further west than that, down towards the Gulf Coast. So we should have dry skies, especially around the metro here later on tonight. But if you do happen to live across some of our more inland and western locations and counties, here's a look at some of the timing. So Live Oak, this line of some thunderstorms going to be making its way towards you within about the next 30 minutes or so. Stark, right around 5 o'clock, is when these storms will reach you. And then La Crosse shortly after that into the 5 o'clock hour as you head down into Alachua County. So some rumbles of thunder further off to the west. And as I said, western Duval County, even west of Oakleaf, seeing a little bit of some rain and storm. So this just passed through Baldwin. As I said, pretty much right along Highway 301. Those will continue to push and march their way off to the southwest. So dry skies across downtown Jacksonville, and especially the beaches here now on this Friday afternoon and evening. So great news for the fireworks plans later on tonight. We'll look at that fireworks forecast in just a second. Temperature-wise, with that kind of wave of moisture streaming its way on through, areas that have gotten some rain or at least have gotten that northeast breeze have started to cool down a little bit, mid to upper 80s for a lot of our coastal locations across southeast Georgia. So they got 86 in Brunswick, 88 there in both St. Simon's Island and the Jacksonville area. Whereas areas a little bit further inland and off to the west still in the low to mid 90s, 93 in Waycross, and a steamy 94 in Gainesville, where when you factor in the humidity, feels like 103. Check out Waycross actually, 106 right now is what it feels like if you're walking around and outside in Waycross. So that is some very steamy stuff. Not a whole lot different in Mayport. It feels like 103, one of our warmest spots along our coastal areas here. So it has been quite the warm, sultry 4th of July. Probably not all that much different than most 4th of Julys here, whether you're in Jacksonville or really anywhere across the First Coast. But you look on the right-hand side of your screen there, pretty defined swirl. That's right where that low pressure system is. So as I mentioned, it's about 150 miles east of the Jacksonville area, pulling in those northeast winds. Overall, not too strong right now. Sustained anywhere from about 10 to 15, gusts upwards of about 20 miles per hour here, particularly out at the beaches. So be mindful of that as you are heading out to some of the firework displays later on this evening. Going to be a little bit breezy, especially in Jax Beach and Fernandina Beach for those displays. Elsewhere, though, dry skies. All the storm's going to be further west of us by the time, those fireworks are going off, 8:30 to 9 o'clock tonight. It's just going to be a pretty warm, muggy evening. Temperatures low 80s, upper 70s, a little breezy, but overall shouldn't have any rain to dampen any of your 4th of July evening plans. Just I hope everyone stays safe and enjoys themselves out there tonight. Now, update on the tropics. We talked about, where that area of low pressure is off to our east. Now has a 70% chance, a high chance of tropical development and or formation here within the next 48 hours. You can see kind of that plume of moisture just off to our east. So I apologize. This just got updated. Subtropical depression Invest 92L. This is a little late on the title getting updated. So I'll fix that here for the 5 o'clock news then. But nonetheless, 35 mile per hour winds. So not to the point of tropical storm just yet, but certainly a pretty potent area of moisture and thunderstorms there on the eastern side of that low pressure system. But thankfully, in our case, most forecast models continue to take this off to the north and or northeast. A few of them kind of have it meander around out there just to our east for a little while before, by the end of the weekend, it starts to push north onshore anywhere really from about Savannah up to Wilmington, North Carolina. So Charleston could be a very likely spot for some of those, spaghetti models to take this storm. So the key here is, our impacts on the First Coast are not going to change whether this tracks, over Charleston or ends up heading towards Wilmington or even as far south as Savannah. What we're expecting here is not going to change at all. We're still expecting, an enhancement of some thunderstorms with coverage, overall storm coverage tomorrow, a little bit breezier, especially out at the beaches, and then we're going to have a rip current risk throughout the day. So because of that, the First Coast News most accurate weather team here, we've issued that weather impact alert for your Saturday afternoon tomorrow and in the evening hours as well. That's going to run from 12 until 8 o'clock tonight for several rounds or bands of showers and thunderstorms that will roll on through, some of which could be a little bit stronger, especially during the afternoon hours tomorrow. And then, as I mentioned, the rip current risk. Big holiday weekend. A lot of folks are likely going to be trying to head out to the beaches. Perhaps might not be the best beach day. Going to be kind of breezy or a little bit windy out there. The rip current risk. Water's going to be fairly choppy. And then we could have some thunderstorms in the area or at least some coastal showers moving onshore throughout the day. Not necessarily making it the best day to just kind of sit out and relax at the beach and get your tan on. So those two things together, the storms and the beach conditions, is why we have issued that weather impact alert. And the overall storm coverage, that meets our threshold. We're forecasting for about 70% of us to see some rain or thunderstorms at least at some point throughout the day tomorrow. That certainly meets our weather impact alert threshold here at First Coast News. So, nonetheless, I digress. Now, let's take a look here at the forecast winds. I mentioned it's going to be breezy tonight. Let's speed it up past midnight tonight. Let's head into your Saturday. Fairly strong, north to northeast winds. Perhaps the strongest up across our more coastal southeast Georgia area. So St. Simon's Island, St. Mary's, Brunswick. You could see some wind gusts perhaps upwards of about 25 to 30 miles per hour. But the strongest winds are going to be on the north and eastern sides of that low pressure system, or now subtropical depression. So really, you're just going to notice it's a little bit breezy out there, but nothing, damaging or anything that you have to tie down, anything that you have outside. Stuff's not going to be blowing over with regards to these winds. Really just a breezy day out there. Actually, if anything, if you get some stronger thunderstorms to develop, that would actually give you a better chance to perhaps, get some damaging wind gusts. But even that, our severe weather risk is quite minimal throughout the day tomorrow. Yes, we will have thunderstorms. Could see wind gusts up to 40, perhaps 50 miles per hour in some of those isolated stronger storms, but not expecting widespread stuff with regards to the strength of storms throughout the day tomorrow. And then as you head into your Sunday, you'll take note here that system begins to move away a little bit. Our wind direction changes much more out of the west and or southwest. So winds will die down, but we're going to keep the humidity and the moisture intact. Still going to have a chance for some storms there to end the weekend. So let's just time it out hour by hour for your Saturday tomorrow. I do think we have a decent chance, especially along more of our coastal areas, so the 95 corridor and especially coastal southeast Georgia could have some early morning showers, anywhere between about really 6 and 10 a.m. tomorrow. Not going to be a lot, but it's just enough that you might get a quick downpour that rolls on through during the morning hours. And then really after lunchtime into the afternoon, that's when we're going to have those off and on chances for some of those scattered thunderstorms. And that's, reflected here as well. Our rain chances up to that 70% chance or coverage really between about 1 o'clock and 6 o'clock tomorrow afternoon and evening. So here's another way to look at it. You can continue to see Invest 92L swirling around out there off to our east. Here's a look at some of those coastal showers trying to stream on in there across our, Glenn County, Camden County, perhaps as far inland as the Folkston and the Hunta areas. And then after lunch, I really do think nearly all of us have a pretty equal chance of seeing, some rain and storms. Obviously you have to take these models with a little bit of a grain of salt. This is showing, for example, a storm going through Middleburg tomorrow exactly at 3 o'clock. That might not exactly be the case, but it gives you a good idea, kind of the haphazard scatteredness of some of the moisture in these bands of showers and isolated thunderstorms. That will move on shore throughout the day tomorrow, continuing through your dinner time and then beginning to taper off as you approach sunset and shortly thereafter. So really after about 9 p.m. tomorrow night, everything quiets down. I mentioned the rip current risk. It's going to be pretty choppy out there, not only at the beach where we have that moderate rip current risk, but also in the intercoastals, the St. Johns River. Not the best boating day either. So if you are going out, just be as safe and as cautious as you possibly can. It's, going to be rocking the boat at least a little bit out there on the water tomorrow, wherever you are across the First Coast. Now, let's look ahead to Sunday as those winds dip down. Sunday, I think, especially through the first half of the day, going to be a much better beach day, pool day, boating day, whatever you're doing. Sunday is going to, I think, be the pick of the week or the pick of the holiday weekend here, perhaps I should say. Now, we do still have a chance for some thunderstorms, but really we're going to get a little bit closer to those sea breeze collisions on Sunday, and then that'll continue into next week. So much more of a southwesterly breeze on Sunday. Pretty much after 2 o'clock, we'll watch for some of those thunderstorms to initialize closer to the Gulf Coast initially. Those will spread east and northeastward throughout the day. So if you live in Jacksonville or at least around the Jacksonville metro area, I would say probably after 3 o'clock and then through your dinner time Sunday night, you'll have a chance to see some rain and thunderstorms. Not everyone's going to get hit. I think perhaps 60% of us see some rain and storms there on Sunday. So just below our weather impact alert criteria. But nonetheless, still could see a few storms there on Sunday. But the first half of your day looking much better. Whereas, Saturday, some morning showers are possible. Not expecting that on Sunday. Here is what one of the kind of shorter range models are showing with regards to the winds and kind of where that center of circulation is, potentially going to track. And I mentioned north and eastern sides of the circulation are going to have the stronger winds. So thankfully we're on that back side, the west side, slightly lesser winds, a little bit more dry air, which could, limit some of the thunderstorm chances perhaps across more of our inland southeast Georgia communities throughout the day tomorrow. But here it continues to kind of pretty much take it right over the Charleston area and then eventually on shore, even by early Sunday morning. So that's why our overall weather is going to improve rather quickly and drastically once that moves out to the north by Sunday morning. We're much back to a pretty typical summer-like pattern here on the First Coast with those winds out of the southwest and watching for the sea breeze collisions to occur by the afternoon. So if you're just now, hopping on and tuning into the stream, here's another way to look at everything tomorrow morning. Mid-70s temperature-wise when you first wake up. It's going to feel very muggy, pretty breezy, anywhere from about 10 to 15 miles per hour up until about lunchtime. As you get into the afternoon, we could see winds closer to 20, even 25 miles per hour. I do not expect overall wind speeds to exceed 30 miles per hour unless you get an isolated thunderstorm that is stronger, that puts out, a 40 or 50 mile per hour wind gust. Besides that, we're not expecting a windy day, really just a pretty breezy day tomorrow, but numerous thunderstorms, fairly haphazard and scattered in nature with those bands coming on shore really after lunchtime. So weather impact alert set from 12 to 8 o'clock. And of course, remember, if you're heading out to the beach, we've got that rip current risk in effect tomorrow. Beaches and the rip current risk will improve and be a bit lower for your Sunday. So if you're heading out to the beach this weekend, Sunday is going to be the day to do it out there for you. How much rain could we see from this? This is the Weather Prediction Center's 7-day rainfall outlook. Generally keeping the most and heaviest rain totals further off to our south and southwest, slightly lesser totals the closer you get to the coastline, especially from really northern St. Johns County up to the Brunswick area. So I think by the time we get to Sunday, many of us could have picked up a quarter to a half inch of rain. There's going to be localized pockets of some of those heavier downpours and thunderstorms that, you could pick up 1 to 2 inches if you happen to get storms both days over the exact same location. But really, it's going to be, areas from I-10 south, down towards the I-4 corridor, Orlando, Tampa Bay, going to have a much better chance to see some higher rain totals closer to, 1 to 3 inches. But generally speaking, this has improved a lot over the last couple of days. We were, at the beginning of the week, talking about Jacksonville seeing 1 to 3 inches. Inland locations out towards I-75 getting 4 to 6. Thankfully, that's not the case here now. I think most folks out towards I-75 see somewhere between 1 to 3. And as I mentioned, around Jacksonville, I think most of us get somewhere between a quarter and a half inch of rain by the end of the weekend. But there will be some locations that don't see much of any rain, and there will be others who get, a little bit more closer to that, 1 inch total, perhaps up to 2. But generally speaking, higher totals going to be further off to the south and southwest there for you. Then as you head into next week, we really crank out the thermostat back into the mid-90s, a persistent southwest wind, not only at the surface but aloft as well. So that's going to keep that Atlantic East Coast sea breeze pinned closer to the coastline and I-95, and we're going to continue to see, our best storm and rain chances closer to the metro area and 95, starting on Monday and continuing through most of next week. But the heat and humidity, I think, will really be the biggest story here. Mid-90s on Monday. That trend's going to continue through nearly the entirety of next week. But you'll notice here the dew points and the humidity itself remaining in the mid-70s. So a very tropical-like air mass in place. The humidity does not go down at all. So when you have dew points in the mid-70s and temperatures in the mid-90s, that is not a combination, a concoction that I know I'm, excited for. I'm certainly kind of dreading next week just with how it's going to feel outside. So, this weekend, not terrible, but by the time we get to Monday, real field temperature is going to be anywhere from about, I would say, 103 to 107 degrees. That'll continue through Tuesday, Wednesday, perhaps even into Thursday of next week. And remember, our heat criteria here, or heat advisory criteria, I should say, here on the First Coast is 108 real field temperature. And, Tuesday we got it up to 107. So we're going to be very, very close to heat advisory levels by the time we get to next week. Do we actually hit that point? Probably not, but perhaps some of our more inland locations that don't feel the sea breeze as much, we'll watch very closely to see if those heat advisories get issued, for some of those more inland locations as the temperatures continue to soar. Mid-90s for Jacksonville, perhaps upper 90s for areas like, Stark, McClenny, Sanderson, Lake City even, Folkston perhaps as well. So it is going to be a steamy week next week. We'll have some storm chances. I think slightly lower storm coverage on Monday and Tuesday, thanks to some high pressure that's going to be in place. I think that'll limit things a little bit. Also, some somewhat drier air aloft in the atmosphere might just limit coverage. So will we still have some storms and showers on Monday and Tuesday? Yes, certainly so. Just not everyone's going to be seeing them. We're not going to see as many across the entire First Coast. But then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I'm expecting most of us have a pretty decent chance to see some showers and thunderstorms really between the 2 and 6 o'clock hour. Your daily afternoon and early evening thunderstorms here around Jacksonville and the 95 corridor. That really kicks into, full gear, by Wednesday and through the back half of next week. So just a quick reminder, weather impact alert for your Saturday tomorrow for the storms and for the rip current risk if you are heading out to the beach. Sunday, some more storms by the afternoon and evening hours, but overall, a much nicer of a day prior to any of those storms firing up. And then there you got it. Very hot, steamy, humid weather for pretty much all of next week. And of course, tonight, all of our storms here now pushing well off to our west and southwest of the Jacksonville area. So enjoy the fireworks out there this evening. Stay hydrated as best you can, hopefully with some water. Alternate, of course. But overall, just enjoy your 4th of July, folks. Happy Independence Day to you. We appreciate you guys tuning in to First Coast News Plus here for our 4 o'clock weather updates. As always, I'm meteorologist Ross Mumal. Take care, folks.